Yes, it's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Hey, get ready for a happy new year, everybody. 2022 is drawing to a close. We're in the final few hours, and I sincerely wish all the viewers here and all the contributors who've put in little comments below a brilliant new year. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit about festive celebrations in prisons. I was at the Scrubs it was New Year's Eve, and it was the eve of 1976. In other words, the 31st of December 1975. I was the officer in charge of the segregation unit at night, and in the prison, in that segregation unit, there were members of the IRA, all the lot, Ian Brady, Commander Drury, ex-Chief Superintendent Ron Moody, loads of the inmates and their notorious inmates in the segregation unit. Midnight comes, they're all banging on the cells, Happy New Year! Outside the cells, the cards told a different story. Lifetime 7, etc. So you know where their next 12 months was going to be spent. Banged up in the Scrubs. What a happy new year that is. Strange ways they used to get the usual crew in. People go out into the streets, deliberately breaking into places, smashing windows to get themselves locked up so they could join in the staff in strange ways for a jolly, merry prison Christmas. And it was basically a light-hearted regime as best you could, considering Strange Ways was somewhat of a notorious screws jail. And for those of you who wonder what a screws jail is, it's somewhere like Strange Ways, where the staff are in control. They don't have them now, do they? Now they've got waitresses, landing hostesses. Yeah, your hostess with the mostess. Yeah, I showed you a picture of one yesterday, I think it was. The Secret Deterrent by HMP Bedford. That young lady whose name was given as Emily. 20 years old and 5'2", waving a degree in history. Yeah, telling us all about the Civil War. Yeah, and Guy Fawkes and various other historical facts that are invaluable if you're going to be locking violent men up. How can you possibly operate without a knowledge of 1066 and all that? But then again, the Home Office, the Ministry of Justice and all the rest of it, they know best, don't they? When I was in the prison system, there was approximately 38,000 inmates. And they were, in the jails I worked in, they were controlled. They did what the prison staff said, and if they didn't, then there were consequences. Nowadays, there's nearly 100,000 inmates in HM prisons, and they do what they damn well want, from what I can see. Apart from the fact that 23 hours out of 24, a lot of them are locked in. Now, to whose benefit is that? It's damaging the inmates. It's losing their ability to prepare themselves for a productive life in society. And somebody posted up a note on here, a comment, suggesting that it might be better if instead of imprisonment, people were required to work. That's a radical thought, that, isn't it? I mean, has anybody ever tried that before, do you think? Hang on. Yeah, working on a chain gang. Yeah, that's it, working on a chain gang, folks. Yeah, we could do that, couldn't we? I mean, there's all the crops that need picking all around the country, I'd like to see that, yeah. Hand-picked strawberries by inmates from Strangeways. I don't think they grow strawberries in Salford. Not that I know of, anyway. Anyway, let me tell you this. Christmas is coming, been and gone. And here we are with New Year's Eve, so I hope you have a great time tonight. And as for all the prisoners in the jails, you have my commiserations, because they aren't helping you out these days. I mean, they're talking about ridiculous ideas about unlocked graduates who are going in there with high aspirations, but no budget to do anything. That's what we found. When we were there, we were keeping control, but we don't really have facilities to do a great deal. You know, you couldn't actually start like a literature class or music appreciation. I tried it when I was in charge of the hospital ward, and it was seriously frowned upon. You know, they didn't like the idea. We used to play them classical music and read poetry, and when I was on late, up to 9 o'clock at night, around about 8:15, I used to read them a little story. Used to read Richard Crompton's Just William books to all the inmates in there. Seriously, anybody who was in the hospital ward when I was there will tell you that's the fact. I know people say, you just wouldn't do that. Of course you would. And let me tell you this, the inmates really enjoyed it. There was one inmate there who had murdered his wife. He was a former senior civil servant, probably a principal officer or above that, yeah. And he'd been... he was in a catatonic stupor when he was on the hospital ward. You know what a catatonic stupor is. You don't eat, don't drink, don't walk, don't move, just sit there, static. That's how he was. And if we couldn't get him out of that, then he would die. But I was giving him water every hour, as best I could. But I had a look at his file, and it said, basically what he'd done. He'd gone home from work one evening, and his wife was apparently watching one TV program, and he wanted to watch something else, and she didn't want to watch something else, so he strangled her, killed her, laid her down in front of the television set and changed channels. And that's where they found him, in a catatonic stupor with his wife dead in front of him. And anyway, he was committed to Strangeways into the hospital ward. And the psychiatrists were looking at him and the doctors, and they said, this isn't looking good for this man. But I read his file, and I worked it out that this man was an intelligent man, and he just obviously had a mental breakdown. So I brought in a cassette recorder with about 3 or 4 of my cassette tapes with classical music on, and I started playing them to him, Beethoven, Mozart, Shostakovich, symphonies and all the rest of it. And some Puccini, I played him that, La Boheme, and with the headphones on, of course. Didn't play it to everybody, put the headphones on. I mean, he just sat there motionless as this music was going through him, and it was going in. It was about 3 hours we were doing this, and I continued, and I finally put on a piece by Bela Bartok called Bluebeard's Castle. Anybody who's familiar with classical music knows that Bela Bartok, the Hungarian composer, wrote in very discordant chords. It's very difficult to hear. So I put Bluebeard's Castle on, press play. It lasted. He was there with these earphones on, Bluebeard's Castle in his ear. And he took the earphones off. He turned to me and he said, I can't stand Bela Bartok. And he was out. He'd come out. So I wrote up all his notes, and I wrote it up in the day book. And the following morning, by this time the inmates decided that he's all right. He obviously knew what he'd done, but he was back in the swing of things, taking food and drinking water and going to the toilet and all the rest of it, and actually getting in his bed and sleeping that night. So the next day, my day book went down to the chief officer, and it'd be about 10:30 I got a call. Mr. Sutton, go to the chief's office. I went down there, and the chief said to me, I want to know something here. He said, who is Bela Bartok? What has she done? Why does he hate her? I said, I don't know what you mean. He said, it's in your book. This inmate here, you've given his name and number, and it says he can't stand Bela Bartok. Yeah? I said, oh, that. I said, I played him classical music, and Bela Bartok is not a female. Bela Bartok is a Hungarian composer who wrote an opera called Bluebeard's Castle. Are you taking the piss, he said. I said, that's absolutely not. I said, it's worked for this man. He's no longer in a catatonic stupor. He's out of it. He came out of it because I played him classical music. I think you're taking the piss, Mr. Sutton. Get out of my office. And he didn't understand who Bela Bartok was, the ignoramus. And I had actually saved this man's life. And that was the thanks I got. But that's the problem, that if you've got people who are in positions of authority that they're not equipped to hold, intellectually disabled, so to speak, what are you going to do? Anyway, as I said, it is now fast approaching New Year's Eve, and I sincerely hope that all listeners here have a brilliant 2023. Look at this here. This is it. Yeah, see that? That's my book, yeah? The audio version of the book. I'm going to play you a little clip here from the audio version of HMP Manchester Prison Officer.
My trio of large, dark Rastafarian choir boys were ready and in position by the big Christmas tree, awaiting my signal to start singing. At approximately 11:45 a.m, I advised the Central Office SO that we were ready to go, and soon the first landing of inmates was unlocked. As they formed a long queue outside the hot plate, I gave the signal for my Rastafarian choir to start singing, "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas," with every Christmas card I write. Coming from the 3 Rasta prisoners, this caused hilarity, with inmates laughing and whistling at them. They were a big hit, dancing and singing along. Everyone was having a happy experience. Well, almost everyone. I was standing by the coffee dispensing urn. This involved one of my orderlies turning on the tap and filling the plastic pint mug of the inmate half full. This went perfectly well, until one prisoner demanded a full pint of coffee. There simply would not have been sufficient to go round all the inmates if we poured each a pint, so I advised him that he had his ration and that was it. Unfortunately for all present, my attempt at reason was not accepted, and the next moment this angry inmate had thrown his hot coffee into my orderly's face. There followed a battle between the orderly, trying to defend himself, and the mad prisoner, who was thumping, kicking and trying to bite the innocent orderly.
Yeah, that's an extract from chapter 13 of my book, Audiobook, which is available on Amazon. Listen, I know I wrote it, but I didn't perform it. The actor performing that is called Alan Turton. He was in such productions on TV as Brookside and Soldier, various other acting credits. So I highly recommend it. And even though I wrote it, I've listened to it all the way through, and in parts it is quite emotionally moving. I know, I was that jailer. I'm now going to sing you a song, so before you run away, I'll sound the warning bell. That's the song dinger, the last song dinger of 2022. That's sad, isn't it, eh? Goodbye, 2022. Here we go, here comes 2023, and this is the last song that I'm going to sing for you all this year. Well, I don't sing it, do I? I torture them. Here we go. I like this song. It's called Pennies from Heaven. I like the TV series as well. I don't know if you saw that, yeah? A long time ago, 1,000,000 years BC, the best things in life were absolutely free, but no one appreciated a sky that was always blue, and no one congratulated a moon that was always new. So it was planned that they would vanish now and then, and you must pay before you get them back again. That's what storms were made for, and you shouldn't be afraid for. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? You'll find your fortunes falling all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. Take them for a package of sunshine and flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me. There you go. Pennies from heaven. I sincerely hope that you all have a wonderful 2023 and that behind every cloud there is a silver lining for you. Thank you very much for being with me on Tales from the Jails, and we'll see you next year.